Invincible Versus is finally out, and in this video I'm gonna teach you how to play the game and ease your way into it. This guide in particular was designed with everyone in mind, so it doesn't matter if you have never played a fighting game before and this is your first one, welcome by the way, or if you're a seasoned veteran player, you're gonna get everything that you need from the most basic interactions of the game to the more advanced tech and mechanics in this giant video. Of course, if you're new, I would recommend you to watch the whole thing from the start to the end. If you're a seasoned player, then maybe check the timestamps of the video and jump to the parts that make the most sense for you. If you want to support the channel, I would appreciate if you can like and subscribe. It means more than you think, especially for videos like this that take a ton of time and effort. Thank you, and now let's jump into the guide and enjoy Invincible Versus. Okay, so the first thing you need to learn about Invincible Versus is actually that it is a 3v3 tag fighting game, and what that means is that the first time you encounter the character select screen and you choose who to play, the game will force you to build a team of 3. Now, don't feel too overwhelmed by the fact that you have to play multiple characters, because in this game, the overall moveset of the roster is very simple. There are not that many special moves at all, and the game is very centered on a system mechanics that are universally available for everybody, and that is what we are going to go over during the entire video. So don't go too crazy about the fact that it might be too difficult to pick up 3 characters. That's not necessarily going to be the case at all. So just choose the characters you like the most, your favorites. They're going to keep you invested with the game, and you're going to enjoy their moveset, their animations, and have fun. And then over time, maybe you'll kind of like modify the overall decision for your team and the idea of building a more optimal strategy, which we're going to talk about later. Let's now move into the basics of the game. The first thing you need to understand is going to be the controller layout options, because you have 2 ways of engaging with the gameplay. The first one is using a standard controller, and the second one is motion. And the reason why this is so important is because in Invincible Versus, we have something very common on fighting games, which is called special moves. And if you use the standard controller, you can do special moves by simply pressing a button that is called special and then doing a direction like forward, down, or back. But if you're using the motion version, you are going to do motion inputs. And what that means is that if you want to do something like a special move with a character, for example, a fireball, then you need to do a sequence of directions and then press a button, light, medium, or heavy, and you're going to get the special. This is something that you need to choose depending on your preference. If you're super new to fighting games and you're afraid of doing sequences of directions or motion inputs for your special moves, then stick with standard. You're going to have 2 extra buttons, which are special and boost. And then if you're somebody that has been playing fighting games for a while, you can just take the motion inputs controller layout and you're going to feel very comfortable. Like I said, it's just something very personal, and I would encourage you to maybe give both a try and see what's better for you in terms of you feeling comfortable while learning the game. One thing that I almost forgot to mention, and is going to be really important at the start, is to get used to using macros. Okay, macros are essentially a way to bind buttons in your controller that when you press them, work like multiple inputs at the same time. So let's say that you go to the menu, edit your controller, and you input as a macro medium plus heavy because it does a mechanic in the game, and you put it as your R1 button. Then when you press R1, the game is actually going to read it as medium plus heavy and give you the mechanic. It's going to be key for this game because there are way too many things to do that require you to press multiple inputs at the same time. So this is a way to make that much easier. And for example, the game already has that at the base level with stuff like dashing, because you can also dash by pressing a button as a macro instead of tapping forward or back 2 times. So really important to not forget about the macros. They're going to be more relevant than you think over time. When it comes to the basics of the actual gameplay, you are going to encounter a 2D 3-button fighter. What this means is that you have light, medium, and heavy as the buttons in your controller to essentially do the most basic interactions in the game, like kick and punches. And as the name says, they are related to the speed and the range, or how big the buttons are. If you press light, you're gonna get some of your fastest buttons in the game, but they tend to have low range and are mostly used up close. If you press heavy, you're gonna get the big options that tend to be used in the mid-range and also are used to do stuff like launchers and combos and things like that. And then if you press medium, is something in between the strength and also the range of light and heavy. It is not important to go too crazy with what buttons to use at the start. It's just to understand that these are going to be the essentials to all that we're going to talk about later. I also mentioned that the game is a 2D fighter, and what that means most of the time, just like it is the case of Invincible Versus, is that there are 3 types of attacks: overheads, mids, and lows. And the way you defend yourself is that you hold back or down back to block. It is really important to develop the habit of blocking, and you need to change the option depending on the upcoming attack. If people are doing a low, you need to do what we call crouch blocking by inputting down and back. It's the only way to block lows. If you want to block an overhead, you need to just hold back and essentially block a standing, and then if you're gonna get hit by a mid, both of the options are gonna block it. You're gonna kind of like understand over time when something is an overhead or a low, because the animations of the game are gonna hit you. Like most of the time, if people are gonna hit you with a low, the animation is actually kind of like hitting you on your feet. And if it is an overhead, they're gonna hit you over your head. Okay, that's why they're called that way. It's going to become more intuitive over time, but please try to develop the habit of blocking and actually don't become a punching bag, because you never want to block holding back or down back. It's just going to make your experience with the fighting game worse. So trying to find a balance at the start between taking your turn and pressing your buttons, and also blocking by either holding back or down back. Oh, and also, just as a key tip, I recommend you to defend yourself by mostly crouch blocking or holding down back. The reason for this is that in 2D fighting games, overhead attacks are much less common than mids and lows. And we already explained that to block mids and lows, you have to hold down back. So it is kind of like the most standard way to defend yourself at the start. And if you're holding crouch block or down back and you still get open up, that means that they did an overhead. So in that way, you can start to identify which attacks need to be stand block instead of crouch block, and it's going to help you to learn over time how to defend yourself against multiple styles of attacks. Because most of the time, like I said, you're just gonna get hit by either lows or mids that you can block by holding down back. Another basic thing that you need to understand about the game is that it is a tag fighting game. And what that means is that in your left triggers, if you're using the default controls, you're going to have what we call your assist button. If you press one of the triggers, your teammates that you're not actively playing on the screen are going to appear and do an attack to kind of like help you or support you. And if you keep pressing the button or hold it, you're going to actually tag and change the character that you're playing into one of the assists. These are kind of like the basic layers of tag fighting games. I'm gonna go over more advanced mechanics and details about the tag mechanics of the game later, but the first thing you need to understand is that if you just press the button, like I said, you're going to get help from your assists. If you hold it, you're gonna change into one of the teammates. Other stuff that you need to learn about this game at the start is going to be the basic movement of it. So for example, if you tap back or forward twice, you're gonna get a dash on the ground. If you hold up or forward up, you're gonna get a jump. And also, you can actually tap forward or back when you are in the air after a jump, and you get what we call an Airdash. These are going to be your basic movement options at the start. I'm going to talk about the more advanced stuff later for movement, but with this, you can kind of like already move on the screen and play the game without much trouble. And the last basic thing we need to talk about is going to be what we call wake up options. This is really important when people hit you, and there's going to be an animation in which after people combo you, you're going to be on the ground with your character and they're going to try to stand up. While that happens, you can actually press something, okay? And I would recommend you at the start to just hold back or forward so your character rolls on wake up. This is going to be really strong. It's going to make it harder for your opponent to run their offense, and if you do a roll to any of both sides and then you just crouch block, like I said before, it's going to be a very good initial layer to defend yourself from your opponent at the start. Now let's actually talk about the basic resources that are universal in Invincible Versus. In this game, you have two types of meter. Down on the screen, you're going to have what we call super meter. This is going to go from 0 to 5, and it's essentially used to do cinematic attacks, to either end combos or sometimes to use as panic buttons to stop people and their offense. You're going to have level 1 supers, which are mostly for combos, and then your level 3 supers, which are completely invincible, and you can use them, for example, when you wake up to stop people's offense, or in between a fight if you think that you're going to have an opportunity to stop an upcoming attack. That's going to be kind of like the usage of your super meter over time, and it's really important to understand it. Then you also have your boost meter, and the boost meter is related to a ton of the system mechanics of the game and also to EX moves. If you're using the standard controls and you're not doing motion inputs, you're going to have a button for boost, and if you do a special and boost and a direction, you're going to get what we could call an enhanced EX move. And if you're using motion controls, you just do your input and medium, and it's going to give you the EX version of the move. And with these resources, you're essentially able to play the game at a more advanced level at the start if you want to incorporate stuff like supers, which are your cinematic attacks, and then using the basic mechanics of the game that we are going to go over later. Now, let's just try to get it like this and understand why these resources are here and what they relate to. Oh, and also an important clarification about the boost meter is that it is independent to every single character. So if you're actually kind of like getting low on the boost meter with your point character or the first one that you're playing, you can just tag in one of your teammates and you're gonna have all the boost meter again. Hey, just in case that this video has been useful for you until now, or you think that it's helping you to understand Invincible Versus, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel to support it. I cover a ton of different fighting games, and if you want to see more content for Invincible Versus, giving this video a like and subscribing gives me the sign that you actually enjoy it. So thank you for the support, and now let's continue. But now let's actually talk about two mechanics that are extremely important and arguably the most relevant things to understand as a beginner to actually get into this game, which are Assist Breaker and Counter Attack. These mechanics are related to stopping people from comboing you and also from getting their teammates on offense or mid combo and extending those interactions. It's going to be extremely important to understand how to stop them, because in this game there's a lot of freedom when it comes to combo routing, and if you're not able to stop your opponent's combos, they can essentially put you on a loop, or what we could call an infinite, and you're just gonna lose your entire health bar right away. So super relevant to understand both Assist Breaker and Counter Attack. The Assist Breaker mechanic specifically uses some of your boost meter to stop people mid-combo when they're hitting you. This is going to be really strong in defense, and it's essentially going to give you kind of like a get-out-of-jail-free card every time that you get hit, and you have boost meter to stop people from comboing you. And the input for it is going to change depending on if you use a standard or motion control, so I encourage you to just check it on the actual game. I think that for the case of a standard, it is actually doing assist and dash, and if you are on motion, then it's going to be down and one of the assists. But please check it on the actual menu of the game, because this mechanic is extremely important, okay? Assist Breaker to stop combos. And then the other mechanic that is going to be extremely important is called Counter Attack. This one is particularly related to when people extend their combos by calling their teammates, because this is a 3v3 game in which you can actually call your teammates mid-combo, they hit you again when they fly on the screen, and if you don't stop them, they can do it over and over. And the way you stop it is by using Counter Attack. You press medium and heavy at the same time, or even if you have another input, like I said, you have to check it on the menu and on your controller layout. And what this is going to do is that there is going to be another kind of like get out of jail free card, in which when they get their teammate onto the battle to extend the combo, you just get them off you, and you go back to interacting in neutral movement, you know, and essentially kind of like having another opportunity to play the game. It is extremely important for you to understand how to use Counter Attack and stop people from extending their combos with their teammates, because if you don't do it, just caught on a loop and get hit over and over. Okay, so now let's actually move into more advanced mechanics in the game, and let's just start with the tag mechanics, which are related to using your full team in battle when it comes to your offense. There's a lot of things to learn related to tagging in this game, because it is a 3v3 tag fighting game. So a lot of what makes the game unique is connected to using your full team. Let's talk about active tag first a bit more, because even though I kind of like went over it on the surface when I explained the basic defensive mechanics, because they are so important, it is still something that you can use on offense. So you need to understand how to open up your opponent with active tag, and not only how to defend yourself from it. The first thing is that to actually do active tag on offense, you can just hold down one of the assist buttons while you're doing something. That can be, for example, hitting some of your normals and special moves when the opponent is blocking, or when you're doing a combo, like I said, you can just hold down the button, your teammate flies in, and you can extend the combo. And this is going to be extremely strong, because if people don't know how to use the basic defensive mechanics of the game, you can just put them on a loop, both on defense when they're blocking or on hit with combos. So it is absolutely broken if you don't know the basic defensive mechanics of the game, and that's why I explained them first, even before going over how to use active tag on offense, because it is arguably the most big knowledge check in the game. The other thing that is super relevant about the active tag mechanic for you as the attacker is that there's actually other options in the game that are universal that help you to deal with the defensive mechanics that I just explained before, so that people don't get trapped in a loop when it comes to the combos. And this creates a mind game that is one of the best and most fun interactions in the game. For example, let's say that you're doing a combo with your character and you want to extend it by calling your teammates by holding down the assist button and doing an active tag sequence. They get in, fly, hit the opponent, and extend the combo. But you know that the opponent knows how to use the defensive mechanics, so they're just gonna stop you all the time when you try to do that. Well, you can actually ask the attacker, after you do the active tag, after you hold down the assist button and you do the process of getting your teammate mid-combo in, you just press the assist button again or hold it, and you're gonna get what is called a feint, okay? And this is gonna make the other guy whiff its option, and you are gonna get another combo. So there's a constant kind of like back and forth between the attacker and the defender in this game, because you have to kind of like have this mind game in which somebody has to guess who's gonna break the combo, who's gonna break the active tag. Am I gonna know that you're gonna break it and I'm gonna feint? and things like that. And then the other option that you have on top of that is actually pressing heavy after you active tag instead of pressing assist again to do a feint. The reason why this is a good option is because it's a bit more safe. It just changes the timing of the active tag punch instead of you standing there with the feint, because if the opponent knows that you will do a feint after active tag, they can just not do anything and then punish you because you're super minus on front of their face if you do a feint and they know that you're gonna do it. So this is arguably one of the most fun things about the game, but it is relatively complex. So over time, you need to understand how to use the basic defensive mechanics, which are the counter tag and the assist breaker, and then as the attacker, how to use the active tag feint, how to use the active tag heavy to change the timing, and it's going to create some of the most fun interactions in any fighting game that you can play with all the mind games, and it's going to be super crazy and fun, but take your time, be patient, because it can be a little bit too much at the start. And now the last advanced tag mechanic that we need to cover is going to be a snapback. This one is inputted by pressing back or forward and then medium or heavy at the same time, and it allows you to force your opponent to put one of their teammates into the fight even if they don't want to. And this is incredibly good in more high-level gameplay, because a lot of the time in tag fighting games, what people do is that they hide their low health characters as assists so that they have multiple extra attacks to play the game, but don't lose those characters and essentially use as a playable character the one that is the most healthy over the development of the fight. And Snapback is going to allow you to say, no, I'm going to put your less healthy character on the game and you have to fight. If I take it out, you have one less assist and I have an advantage to play the game in general. So really important to understand this when you start to get better at the game. The other way in which some people are going to use it probably is that some characters in the game are going to be mostly chosen because they have a good assist. So if you know that a character is mostly used for their assist and they're not that good when people actually use them in the battle, you're actually also kind of like on a good position to use a snapback to put them in. If you want to put assist 1 into the battle, you need to press forward and then medium and heavy. If you want assist 2, back and medium and heavy. Now let's actually talk about the more advanced defensive mechanics, because defensive options in this game are actually really strong, arguably as strong as the offense side, so it is important for you to understand it. The first advanced defensive mechanic we need to cover is going to be Heroic Strike. This actually uses a bit of your boost meter, just like the combo breaker mechanic, which is called Assist Breaker. So you need to understand that it's not something you can always use, but it's really strong when you can actually use it. This, what it does, is that it gives you a universal armor attack when you're blocking. So for example, let's say you're on defense, you have all your boost meter, and you want to just get your turn back and have an opportunity to run your offense or even get a full combo. Then what you can do is that you input medium plus heavy, or if you're using the motion inputs controller, you actually input medium plus assist, and what's going to happen is that you're going to get a full super big armor attack, and it's going to go through your opponent's offense. If they get hit, you can call an assist to get a full combo, or you can also active tag, and then you get into the mind game of who's going to break the active tag or not, who's going to feint and all of that. And it essentially gives you an opportunity to run your offense even when you're blocking. So it's a really, really strong mechanic in defense, and you need to use it most of the time, especially if people don't know how to deal with it. And also, as an extra tip when it comes to using Heroic Strike, if you actually block an attack that you don't know how to punish, you can use Heroic Strike to punish it, even if you think that it's not possible, because it is a completely different way of interacting with stuff, since you can actually do an attack while you're blocking instead of waiting all the way until the hit stun of the opponent attack lets you do something. So if you, for example, block some sort of reversal or DP that you're not sure how to actually punish, then you can Heroic Strike it and call an assist and actually get a real punish on it. And then the second defensive mechanic that is advanced and you need to be aware of is called Pushblock, okay? It's really strong and super simple to use. So while you're blocking, the only thing you need to do is press your dash macro if you have one, and if not, you press light and medium at the same time. And what this is gonna do is that while you're blocking, the opponent is kind of like gonna reflect and go very far away. It uses a very small amount of your boost meter, so it is arguably one of the best defensive mechanics in the game to kind of like stop the opponent from just recycling their offense over and over, pushing them away and go back to play neutral, which is essentially kind of like the free movement of the game, and try to get your offense going and get a hit, okay? Really important to use push block because it is arguably the most cheap defensive mechanic when it comes to using meter, and it should be the first layer of your defense before you use combo breakers with the assist breaker or you stop you from active tagging. Please try to actually not get hit and kind of like prioritize trying to use push block to stop the opponent's offense. And well, now we can transition into more advanced movement options because there's actually so many ways to move in this game that are really strong, and they're universally available to everybody, so you should be aware of the more advanced movement techniques to actually play the neutral in the game, which is the part in which you're interacting mid-screen. Nobody has gotten hit yet, because it's going to make your gameplay much more effective and easier if you can use all the movement tech that is available in Invincible Versus. The first thing to understand is that there is actually multiple ways of dashing in this game. Like I said at the start, you can do the basic dash in the ground by tapping forward or back twice, or using your dash macro, and the same in the air, which is called an air dash. But in this game, there's actually also diagonal air dashes. So for example, if you input forward and down forward, and then you press the dash macro at the same time, or you tap it twice, you can actually dash or air dash in a diagonal direction. So it's going to be really important for you to understand that the overall kind of like dash movement options are much more than just the basic back and forth of pressing back and forward. So really important to not forget about it, especially when it comes to your offense and using kind of like diagonal air dashes to get in after you jump. Then on top of the extra styles of dashes, there's also multiple types of jumps in this game. At the start I said that you can jump by just holding up or up forward, up back, and get a regular jump, but there is also hops and super jumps. Okay, hops are essentially very small jumps that you can use to kind of like reset your offense up close. So you do a string like light, medium, heavy, and then you just tap very quickly up and forward, and you get like a reset with a jump in. And then your super jumps are inputted by pressing down and then up, and it's gonna be like a giant jump, and it's an option essentially to kind of like play neutral full screen to move while anything's happening in kind of like the full screen range. And you can do stuff like a super jump into a diagonal down forward dash, and it's going to give you an opportunity to close the gap very quickly and get in on offense. And then the last advanced movement technique that you can use in this game is actually a type of dash that uses your boost meter to make it faster and have more range, and it's called boosted dash. You input it by pressing dash and your boost button if you're using the standard controller. If you're using motion inputs, you do it by pressing medium plus heavy and dashing, and it's really strong. It is arguably one of the best ways to play neutral in the game, but the problem is that it is using the same resource that you need to stop people from doing combos, to actually use heroic strike and more defensive options. So I wouldn't actually kind of like spam the boosted dash that much. You can also use it mid combo to lower the combo gauge of the game and make kind of like the combo routing even longer and more damaging, but at the same time, like I said, it is using the same resource of your defensive mechanics. So I wouldn't have used the boosted dash that much. Try to kind of like explore it and see how it goes, but don't go too crazy with it. So now that we have essentially talked about all the mechanics in the game, hopefully it was useful for you to understand them. I actually want to make a small practical gameplay guide in which I try to teach you how to apply most of the stuff that we talk about into real gameplay. So let's go over neutral, your pressure and offense, and also kind of like the combo logic, or how to do combos in the game. The first thing would be how to play neutral in Invincible Versus. Like I said before, neutral in fighting games are all the interactions in which nobody's getting hit, but you're clearly trying to get in, get your turn. For example, you're mid-screen, throwing fireballs, trying to get in on offense, you're using your assist to get in, stuff like that. That will be kind of like playing neutral, and nobody's clearly on offense or defense. That's kind of like what defines neutral as a concept. And in the case of Invincible Versus, I would say that there are going to be 3 interactions that are key to play neutral. The first one is using your assist correctly and having a good assist to play neutral. Since you have 3 characters and 2 assists, it's probably going to be a good idea to build a team in which one of your assists allows you to kind of like play neutral for free. I'm going to use Robot as an example. Robot has a pretty good assist. So for example, you can call the Robot assist with the projectiles. He actually throws them full screen almost, and then you move in while the projectiles are going. It doesn't matter if the opponent gets hit or blocks it, but it is most of the time going to be your turn unless they hit you before you actually get the projectiles in from the Robot assist. So that's kind of like one thing that, in my opinion, is going to define the neutral of Invincible. It tends to define the neutral of almost every single tag fighting game. So if you have a good assist to cover the screen and have an opportunity to get in without that much risk, use it. It's arguably the best way to play neutral. The second thing, in my opinion, that is going to dominate the neutral in this game are going to be just the universal movement options. They are so good and really strong. For example, doing stuff like super jump into diagonal dash full screen is insanely good. You can just do it all the time, and if the opponent is not ready to anti-air it or interrupt it with, for example, something like down H, which is kind of like the universal anti-air of the game, or maybe hit you with an assist, it's actually really hard to deal with it. You can also just do super jump, diagonal dash, don't do anything, actually block while you're dashing in the air and call an assist yourself and that actually would kind of like defeat somebody trying to anti-air you. So there are so many ways to get in that are so strong that everybody can do, unless your character of course doesn't have access to an air dash like Battle Beast, for example, right? There's a couple of characters in the game that cannot do stuff like that, but most of the cast can. So it's going to be really strong. You also have the boosted dash, all the types of jumps, of dashes. There's just so much that you can do that is universally available in terms of movement that is really strong. And then obviously the last option that is going to be really good to play neutral is just the unique toolkit of your character, because in this game in particular, even though the moveset of all the roster is relatively small, there's clearly like always one special move that is designed to play neutral. Like Invincible, for example, right, has a giant neutral skip, kind of like a Barn Knuckle from Terry from other fighting game. Then also you have something similar with the case of Omni-Man that doesn't have a big neutral skip but has a fireball to control the neutral, right, because you can just throw fireballs all the time and control kind of like the pace of the match. So every single character has kind of like that defining neutral tool that you need to explore and see what it is the playstyle that they can actually apply. Then when it comes to running your offense and actually opening people up, I think that is going to be really important to identify if the character that you want to play or the multiple characters on your team have 50-50 mix-ups. What do I mean by this? If they have a good overhead and low attack, that is actually a combo starter. For example, Invincible is a great character to illustrate this because he has an overhead that is really hard to react to. So most of the time, if you're not blocking, kind of like waiting for the overhead to come, you're gonna get opened up by it. He also has a slide that is also a combo starter, which is a low. So he's always kind of like threatening you with either doing an overhead or a low, and you cannot block those two types of attacks by blocking the same way, like I explained at the start. So it's gonna be really good if you have characters that have that kind of like 50-50 mix-up opportunity constantly, really strong. And then the other thing is actually, of course, going to be extending your pressure with assist, like doing a sequence, I don't know, like light, medium, heavy, a special move, very simple, and then call an assist, you're a plus, and you actually have opportunity to do another thing, or you have another turn, you do another sequence, things like that. And finally, using throws, because in this game, since you can actually active tag from almost anything, you can get full combos from regular throws, which are really good. So it is going to be a part of the gameplay as well to kind of like start adding throws when people are blocking everything that you do, and then active tag to get the mind game of the full combo or not. So the offense in this game is probably going to be really diverse and super fun to run, but a little bit degenerate because of all the options. So we will see what happens, but in my opinion, that's going to be kind of like the initial meta of the game. When it comes to the actual combos, the good thing about this game is that the combo routing is extremely simple and super free form. You can essentially kind of like do strings of whatever you want. You can do like a couple of lights into medium and to heavy, then do a light special move, then press medium again, then you can do down H, which is a launcher, and jump, and you kind of like keep doing those sequences in the air. If you press down H again in the air, you send people down to the ground. So it's gonna be like a very universal way of doing combos. It's not gonna be that hard to understand how to execute them. So most of the time, I would recommend you, at least at the start, to just do what we call magic sequence, which is doing light, medium, heavy, then you do down heavy, and in the air after you jump, you do light, medium, heavy again, down heavy, and they go back to the ground. At the end of the combo, when the combo gauge is actually almost filled, you do a super, and then you can active tag after the super to get your teammate in. That's gonna be like the classical universal BNB, and over time you're gonna get more advanced stuff and start adding stuff like, for example, doing boosted dash mid combo to put the combo meter down and keep the combo going. You can also use EX special moves or special moves in between the strings of the magic sequence, and it's just gonna be like really free form. You can do almost anything you want when it comes to doing combos in this game. And well, finally, when it comes to playing defense, I actually put a lot of emphasis in this video on the defensive mechanics because they're arguably the most important part of this game. You can argue that if you want to play Invincible versus and you don't understand the basic mechanics like the assist breaker and the counter tag to stop people from doing combos, from active tagging to extend the combos, you're essentially not playing the same game. It is the most important and kind of like the defining feature of the gameplay. So you really need to worry about getting good at using the assist breaker and the counter tagging, and also understand when to use stuff like Heroic Strike using Pushblock. There's just a lot of options to play defense, but they're universally very strong. So it's not like defense is bad in the game, and it's actually really good. The thing is that offense is also really good at the same time. So if you're not kind of like ready to use the defensive options in the best way possible, you're gonna suffer a ton. So really worry about understanding the defensive mechanics. Watch that part of the video again if it is necessary, because it is arguably the most relevant thing in the entire game. An important tip also that I almost forgot is that there's also reversals in this game. So you can do level 3 supers as reversals, which have like a specific inbuilt frames, and that helps you to stop people from maybe doing offensive things when you're blocking, or also when you wake up, or even in neutral if you know that they're going to do something that you can stop with a level 3. And then at the same time, some of the boosted versions of the special moves or the EX moves have armor, so even though they are not like real invincible reversals, they are actually really good on defense as well. So you have a ton of ways to play defense. Just try to over time get used to all the options. So that was the video, guys. I have no idea how long this was, actually probably kind of big, but I hope that it was useful, that it helps you to get into Invincible versus. If this is your first fighting game, I truly hope that you can kind of like get hooked by it and play other ones as well, because fighting games are some of the best video games out there if you actually understand them. Really fun to play and really engaging. So enjoy Invincible versus, like and subscribe if you want to support the channel. I would really appreciate it, especially if the guide helped you or it was useful, and see you on the next one. Take care.